See if I can
Okay.
move my camera up a little bit. There we go. Better.
Good. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Happy Friday. How are you? What day is it there anyway? Where are you? Are
I'm
you
Maryland. I'm in Maryland. Are you in America? Where are you?
okay? Yes, I'm in Chicago.
Chicago. Okay. Okay. It's no this morning, so it's cold. I haven't went outside yet. So, can you introduce who you are to the audience, please?
Absolutely. I am Karen Putz. I am known as the Passion Mentor, and I help people unwrap their passions at any age. Part of my story is that I was born with normal hearing. I grew up hard of hearing. At the age of 19, I was barefoot water skiing at a high speed and I took a fall. So when I climbed into the boat, I had gone deaf, but I didn't know it. I had a condition called tinnitus that set in, which is like a loud ringing noise, and I had that for about 6 months. And I had gone deaf. So I lost the rest of my hearing at that point, needed to use hearing aids 24/7 from that point on. So as you can imagine, it was quite a turn in life for them.
That's quite interesting. How did it felt? Like, was it scary for you?
It was a dark, dark time in my life because I had spent my entire life fighting being hard of hearing, trying to be like a normal hearing person, trying to blend in, trying to fit in. I was left out of so many conversations, and I would just sit there and laugh because I just wanted to look normal. So I spent my entire life being ashamed of being deaf. That when I finally became deaf, it was like, okay, I had two choices at that point. I could either continue to struggle, continue to do what I had already always known, or I could embrace the journey. And at that moment, making that decision in my life, I decided to embrace the journey of being deaf. And I put my hearing aid on for the first time, went out in public, put my hair back. I had never shown my hearing aid to people before. So for me, that was a defining moment and like a life lesson because when you choose to embrace adversity, when you choose to embrace what is happening to you, things start shifting in your life and you start feeling a peace that you've never known before.
How how's I'm curious. How does it work with the hearing aid? Like, how can you like what does it do?
That's a great question. First of all, I should tell you that I am looking at a sign language interpreter right now. So this sign language interpreter is on a video phone, listening into our conversation and signing everything that you say. So lip reading is not accurate. Lip reading, you get maybe 40%, then got to put the rest of the piece of the puzzle together. So for me, communication is always a challenge. And when people are curious about what can I hear, when I take the hearing aids off, I can hear absolutely nothing. I mean, the train could go by, I would feel it, but I wouldn't hear it. So something has to be as loud as a jet engine for me to even begin to hear it with my hearing aids off because I have 105, 110 dB hearing loss. 25 dB is the normal range, so I'm at the very bottom of the scale. If you stood behind me with my hearing aids on, I could hear your voice talking. I would know that you're talking, but I can only hear vowels. So imagine writing a sentence with only vowels. Doesn't make any sense. My brain can't make any sense of the voices that are coming in. So when I put the hearing aids on, I can hear something, but I can't understand anything without lip reading or with an interpreter.
Mm. When you use interpreter, how did you when how you said did you develop to understand sign language, or you never used see sign language before?
I got really lucky because shortly after I became deaf, I had planned to transfer to Northern Illinois University. And they put me on a, sorry, here, I gotta turn my phone off. I forgot to hear it vibrating. The whole desk is shaking. So, when I, right after I became deaf, I transferred to NIU, and they put me on a floor with other deaf and hard of hearing people. And I was really upset about that, because I had grown up among people who could, with normal hearing all my life. And I was dealing with all these emotions of being deaf. But I really think God has a big plan, because being on that floor was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was surrounded by people who used American Sign Language. And at first it was very awkward, very, if you know ASL, there's a lot of expression on the face. There's a lot of, to me at that time was very strange. But that moment that I made that decision to wake up and say, hey, I'm going to embrace this life, that was the decision in the day that I'm like, I'm going to learn American Sign Language. And it just changed everything for me, because it added another language. It opened up the world to me. I met deaf and hard of hearing people for the first time who signed, didn't use their voices, and they were happy. To me, it was just like an awakening, because if these people didn't need their voice to communicate, could be perfectly happy being deaf, I could too.
You said American. Are you where were you born, or were you born in another country?
No, I was born and raised in Chicago area. And American Sign Language is the sign language of the U.S.
Ah.
There are different sign languages all over the world.
What make you write the? Because I saw it's very beautiful cover, and I checked it right. Unwrapping Your Passion. It's very beautiful cover. So, what decide you to write that book?
That is an amazing story. As you know, barefoot water skiing was a sport that made me deaf. I abandoned it. And then at the age of 44, my husband saw a Today Show link. And on the Today Show was this 66-year-old woman, Judy Myers, and she was barefoot water skiing in Florida. And so I'm watching this video over and over again, and I'm just like crying and bawling, because there was a realization that I thought 44 was old. But watching this 66-year-old woman do something that I used to love just woke me up at that moment. Because if this 66-year-old woman could do something that I used to do, why not me? So at the age of 44, I got back on the water. I met Judy. She introduced me to Keith St. Ange, who is the two-time world barefoot champion. Keith became my mentor and my coach, and I started competing. And I competed for 4 years and met people all over the world barefoot water skiing. It was just absolutely amazing. That moment that I put my feet back on the water again at 44, the old passion came flooding back. And at that moment, I recognized that, wow, we can unwrap this gift of passion anytime we want. We have to recognize that we have a gift within us and unwrap it. That's what we're here for. That's what our purpose is here on earth, is to use our gifts. So that led to the book. I started interviewing over 200 people about this topic called passion. How did they unwrap their gift? How did they make it a part of their life? And turned out to be a book.
That is a very beautiful, beautiful story, and I'm glad that you're doing what you do, because that would be inspire so many people. That's a gift. And how can we find our gift? Because we all here, always here in the personal development space, find our passion, purpose, and gift. How can we find it?
That's a great question. That's probably an age-old question. You find so many articles on the internet of finding your passion. Well, as you can imagine, if the gift is within you, you have to know yourself first. A lot of times we drift through life without really sitting down and thinking about what do I want? What am I good at? What brings me joy? What do I want to do more of? Those are the questions you need to be asking yourself. And I teach that in my passion school. I have a course called Unwrap Your Passion. So I take you step by step by step doing the passion touch and passion touch facilitator. And I absolutely love that tour because it makes you sit down and really think. If your life was absolutely ideal and you were doing something that you loved, that brought you joy, that contributed back to the world, what would it be? And it's for many of us, it's not just one thing.
Hmm.
We're dynamic human beings. We're interested in many things. And in the process of writing the sequel to Unwrapping Your Passion, I discovered there's actually 5 levels of passion. And the first level is curiosity. What are you curious about? So you start there, you start learning more. And the second level is actually the learning stage, identifying what you're curious about, start learning more about it, start experiencing it. When you move to the third level, that's the excitement stage. All of a sudden, you start realizing, hey, I like this. I want to do more of this. That's that excitement stage. And then we move into the mastery stage. Mastery stage involves a lot of suffering, and that is the secret root meaning behind passion is to suffer, willingly suffer. Because
Hmm.
when you're passionate about something, you'll get up in the morning and you'll do it. You'll drive 5 hours to experience it. You'll go above and beyond to connect with people who have that passion because you want to learn more. You will put yourself through hours and hours of training and failures and disappointments, but that passion at that level, at the mastery level, will keep fueling you more and more and more along. And then finally, you come to that top stage of really unwrapping your passion, and that's the fulfillment stage. You start recognizing that, oh my gosh, this is what I'm about. This is who I am. This is my path. This is what I love. So those 5 levels, I'm going to be revealing them in my next book, and you're the first ones to hear this.
Yeah. But I feel like when you talk, you have so much passion within you.
You know what? I do. If you met me at 44, I was passionate, but I was drifting through life. And most of us do that. It's what I call our sleepwalking phase of life where you're just caught up in routine and you're doing things, you react to life instead of passionately living life. You're reacting to it. And that's basically what I was doing. I mean, I was a mom of 3 teenagers at that point. I was working a full-time job, almost 60 hours a week. I was running a nonprofit. It was just absolutely crazy. But I was doing it pretty much reactively. Okay, I got to do this, done, check off. Okay, boom, I got to do this, done, without really feeling, without really consciously saying, do I want to give another 2 hours to a movie or this? So after learning all these principles of passion, now when you come to a decision, a choice, or an opportunity, you have that opportunity to decide whether you're going to put your time and your effort and your money into passion or you're going to react to something and just give away the time. So it's a different way of living.
Ah, you are absolutely right, and that's why I do the interview so I can inspire people who are like you doing amazing things for people, right? And when we talk about passion, is it enough to do? Because I see many my friends, they liked to do their passion, but they fail over and over again. Now I say failure is great; it's a learning experience, but I feel like they don't have the mindset of self development, improvement, learning, and skill set. Skill set where it required to build your passion, to be able to market it, to be able to get your message out. I think that's the failing for disaster. What you think that? without skill set, your passion
Mm,
can't like move.
that is a very good question. And I think it's also what I call the messy middle. It's the messy middle of the passion development. You may have a goal or this is what I want, and then you get stuck in the messy middle. And I have learned that when you are stuck in the messy middle, you need to either meet more people, learn something more, or delegate what you cannot do. And that's something that I personally am learning at this point. Um, I've hired somebody to help me with marketing emails. I've hired somebody to help me with that component that I don't want to do this part of it. So team up with people who can help you get through that messy middle so that you can keep your eye on that fulfillment piece of the passion.
That is so beautiful. My one of my mission in life is to impact the special education because I was in special education and I thought I was dumb until I was curious. That's where it all began. But back in 2011 to 2013, I was really in a major depression because I had a really major breakup. But even though I was listening to a interview of Dean Gracio or something, and he said, while you're going through the dark time, you don't like it, right? But when but when you get out of it, it changed you. It changed who you are. So back in 2013, I become aware about the world around us, and that the ideas that we have are really false because perception is reality based upon what we what's it our environment. The way we were raised is how we influence our environment, and if we can change ourselves by the idea of books, because school was terrible for me. I don't like school. I hated school. I would skip school. I got addicted to skipping and I got kicked out of high school until I read books on the brain and open doors. And so, what do you think about the current educational system or the school system? Do you think it can be changed?
Wow, that's something my husband and we were just talking about this last night. In fact, yesterday I was talking with a homeschooler, and I would love to see an overhaul on how we teach. Because so much of, I think, of what we teach in school doesn't match people's gifts or abilities very well. I can't remember the last time I used algebra,
Mm.
you know? Um, so it just, I would love to see a way where we could really tap into people's individuality and create critical thinkers. Because I think sometimes school as a mass creates mass thinkers instead of critical thinkers. And for some people, going the educational route is an absolute must. If you want to be a doctor, you've got to choose
Yes,
that route. But
yes.
if you want to be an auto mechanic, you don't necessarily need that 4 year degree. So sometimes knowing yourself and understanding that this journey is always evolving, you can always choose education at any point of your life in different ways. And when you know that, it starts opening a whole different path to you. My oldest son graduated with a degree. My other two, my daughter, she chose to leave school. She went to perform on Broadway. And ironically, the same school that she dropped out of, she went back to work for, and now she's performing for that school and traveling. So you just never know how your journey's going to unfold. My youngest son is now exploring different school options and working. Not everybody has that same path of go to school, get a job, retire. There's so many different ways to live life,
Mm.
and start with knowing who you are and what you want to learn.
Ooh, that is so beautiful. Thank you. You're absolutely right. There's no one path to success. I feel like most of the time we've been conditioned by society, sometimes often parents. that life is like one fit box and one for all. Like like it's like how you're gonna live and you're gonna die, right? But I don't feel view life that way anymore. I used to, where you say go to. I used to thought that if you don't go to school, you won't be successful, and that's where I find the answer to my question when I interview authors and experts and people, because people have a very different success what people put on as a person. And what is your success?
I think this whole idea of what success looks like for us is a very dangerous thing. Because a lot of times I think we develop what I call comparatitis. We're always comparing ourselves to somebody on social media who's bigger and better and doing things differently, and then we think we are less than. And I learned a beautiful word from one of my mentors, Kevin Hall, who's the author of Aspire. Love that book. Highly recommend it. Add that book to your reading list. Kevin says, he taught me this word, genshai, Genshai. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, genshai. And basically, it is a Hindu word that means to never make anyone feel small, including yourself. How many times do we make ourselves feel small? And that means we're not operating in our divine light. When we put ourselves down, and it's very easy to do. I even myself, after this time, have moments where oh, poor me, or I'm just having a really bad, sad day. We're human. We're human. And we need to understand that we're on this journey of life, doing the best we can. You know, and I think if there's one thing that we could teach people is compassion. Compassion for fellow man. I see so much fighting going on Facebook, so much fighting going on in my own world. And it's like when you step back and you think, gosh, if we could only just sit back and have compassion for our fellow man and recognize that we're on our own path and our own journey, it just changes the way we put energy out into the world.
How can we find how can when we say compassion, what does it feel like to have compassion for our fellow man?
It's very close to empathy. It's the
Mm.
idea of letting go when somebody else has a belief system that's different from yours. To remove yourself from the argument that's going on, to sit back, to try to understand where the other person is coming from. You don't necessarily have to believe it, agree with it. You don't have to argue with it either. You don't have to contribute back to the negative energy that's going on in the world. You can release yourself with that compassion. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, dear friend of mine, Peggy, was killed by her own daughter. It was very tragic and very hard to understand it, very hard to deal with it without getting angry at her daughter. How dare you take away my friend? You know? Um, and there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of negative energy swirling around that. But one day I decided to just sit there and have compassion for her daughter. And it just kind of shifted things a little bit. I'm not quite there with releasing and forgiving. I'm learning, you know. But for one small spark of a moment, I had compassion.
Thank you. That was not easy to do. I'm thinking it was tough. And how, since you overcome all your difficulty, how did you overcome your fears? Did you have any?
Fear is a big one. I have a chapter on that in my book. Um, I think fear is probably the number one thing that keeps people from living with passion. They give more energy to the fear than they give the energy to the passion. Give you an example. When I first got back on the water, one of the questions that I asked the World Barefoot Champion was, are there alligators in the water? I'm deathly afraid of alligators. They're the one creature on earth that I think God made a mistake making. So I am deathly afraid of it. And the answer was yes, there's alligators in the lake, but they don't bother you. So all I could think of was a 13-foot alligator slithering at me under the weeds when I was in the water. So as you can imagine, my heart starts beating, the fear starts escalating. But I had to put that out of my mind. I was so excited about barefoot water skiing again. So in that moment, you can choose what you want to do with your fear. You can choose to release it. You can choose to shift to what is a better solution or a better outcome than the fear itself. Okay, I used to joke that, okay, so if I get eaten by an alligator, at least I was barefooting 3 seconds before. You know? But the funny thing is, one day a friend of mine, a fellow barefooter, Ken Cowles, he cornered me literally and made me sit on an alligator. He said that you've got to conquer that fear. You got to face it up close. You got to get up close with an alligator. And I thought he was crazy. And you know what the funny thing is? I knew that if I said no to him, I would be a hypocrite. I could never, ever coach somebody about fear if I said no to Ken and I didn't sit on that alligator. I didn't really have a choice. I wanted to be authentic in my coaching, right? Got to face my fears. So that day, Ken pulled out a 10-foot alligator, and he's motioning me, come closer, come closer. I'm shaking like a leaf, and I'm just trying to breathe and all that. And he had me touch the alligator's throat first. And to my complete surprise, it was completely soft, you know? And it was just like, oh. So I sat on that alligator for probably 2.3 seconds, but I did it. And I shook for probably 2 hours afterwards. I'm not kidding you. That's my son. He remembers it. But what I learned in that moment is that when you face your fear, the only way around fear is smack dab right through it. And when you do that, you create awe moments in your life because something that you thought you couldn't do, something that you feared, and you faced it and you worked through the fear and you went out and you did it, all of a sudden you've got an awe moment in your life. It's like people who are afraid of public speaking, they shake, but when they get up there and they finish, they do it, they look back and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. We need more of those I can't believe I did that moments in our life to keep us alive. And the only way to do that is to face that fear that is a barrier in front of you. Do you get past that? That's where you find, those awe moments. You find the passion at a whole different level.
You're absolutely right. But for me, every time I face my fear, I feel like there's another level of another fear of like there's so many fears in front of you, and you have to. It's like it's an endless um, fear, right? And you have to keep tackling it, get it over with. But there's another fear, tackle another one. But it's where you find a treasure within those fear, right? You find what was it? I love the quote of Joseph Campbell. He said, "The cave you fear to enter, there's a treasure you'll seek," or something like that. It's so true. But the treasure that we seek might be something different that's meaningful to us. Because I was reflecting back what actually that means. And how can you, for you as an individual, your soul is so beautiful that you're inspired to help other people. And what inspired you to inspire to help flip and find people their passion? What make you do that?
Two things. Well, let me go back and let me ask you something. What is your biggest fear? Say it out loud. What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear. I feel like my biggest fear would be sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough.
You know what? That is probably another very common thing, the imposter syndrome. And here's what I have learned. I felt that before I started writing my book, thinking, who am I to write a book about passion? Janet Atwood has wrote that book about passion. Who am I to write a book? What I learned is that there's only one you in this entire universe. You can only do you as you can. So when this fear comes in, like of being found out that I'm not the expert, that I'm an imposter, that all that, it needs to go out the window. As long as you are authentic about your journey and bring people along on that journey, you won't have imposter syndrome. You will stand in your own brilliance. You will recognize that you are enough.
Yeah,
So
thank
that's
you.
one.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes every time I do like a book review, I just read the book, but I don't have like a whole complete knowledge of it, and I feel like I just write down the notes. I don't like have this critical. I don't have because I like to talk with like without any like script. I hate being because there's where YouTube you what was it? YouTube people teaches you should do script, but then I want to be free flowing. You know, it's hard to be structured for me. Thank you so much for that. For you, how
Do
comes?
Johnny is only Johnny can be done. That's
Hmm,
what I say. It's a script. I'm similar to you. I don't like scripts. I like to just turn on the camera and see what happens. Nothing wrong with that. Stand in that. If it fits you and if it feels right, be the leader in that.
hmm.
Because when it's right for you, it will be right for the world.
Yeah, that's also my other fear. I feel like I don't know what a leader felt like because I was reading. I feel like I'm not a leader. That's one of my fear too. Even though I'm like leading people, but I feel like I'm not a leader. How can I like bring that out to the surface?
One thing that I've learned from the passion test is there's a measure of no tension. When you're down a path and you're encountering tension, it's either a test or it's something that tells you you need to divert your path. And you need to know which one it is. Okay, you need to get to the no tension route on the path when you're like, okay, this is right for me. And then start aligning up with things instead of fighting who you are. So that's where you have to get to that no tension part on your path. Is recognizing what's right for you, who you are, and what direction you are going in. When you know this stuff, you start owning it. You start owning the path. People will come into your life and say, no, you're not doing it right, or they start giving opinions, they start criticizing. Those, again, are measurements for you to sit back and say, am I on the right path? Is this true or not for me? You know, people are, I mean, the more and more people get to know you, the more critics you have out there. That's
Yeah,
what I'm learning.
yeah, yeah.
And the strongest people stay true to their path and don't become what I call a sail, a loose sail swaying in the wind. Because you're going to start swaying with every opinion out there, and then you lose your way. And that happens to all of us as humans. Especially if we have mentors that we really honor and recognize, sometimes even those mentors can sway us in the wrong direction if we don't know ourselves.
Mm, wow, what you say opened my eyes. Thank you so much for that. That's like a light bulb.
Awesome.
And then when it comes to optimism, how can you have so much optimism sometime? How can you deal with the obstacle that's in front of you?
You caught me on a good day. If we interviewed 2 days ago, it would not have been a good day. Humanness. And I think also I've come to a point in my life, I'm comfortable with who I am. I know where I want to go. Um, and, and I'm choosing it. There's a wonderful book by Hal Elrod called The Miracle Morning, and it sets the tone for your day. And I know that when I set the tone for my day with intention, it usually unfolds that way. I intend to live with joy. I intend to find some bliss throughout the day. I intend to bless somebody else so that they feel good, because that makes me feel good when I'm helping other people. That's my path. I've always been a helper and down the helping profession mode, so that's just my gift, my path. So when you get up in the morning, set that intention for your day on how you want to live. And then throughout the day, have checkpoints. Because I will have times where I let negative thoughts, negative emotions, I am, step into gossip, or I mutter and it messes me up. It's a human thing. So set the intention for your day in the morning, and then in the evening, reflect back on your day with gratitude.
Hmm. You, it seems like you read books. You read books, or you read audio, or you listen to audio. Oh no, you read books.
Can't do the audio. I'm deaf.
Oh, yeah, I was kind of saying, okay.
I'm only using this thing for the microphone. But I read. Oh my goodness, I've been a reader since I was 4. Reading books is my escape. It's how I get my energy. It's how I learn best through the written word. I love books. I just gave away 18 bags of books, so that should tell you. Yeah.
That's a lot of books.
Amazon and I, we have a good relationship. Barnes and Noble and I, we have a good relationship.
Wow. What type of books do you? What type of subject do you go into?
Nonfiction. I love biographies. I love self help. I love anything that shows me how I can navigate the world better. I do love fiction, but I find that I'm not reading it as much.
Hmm. What type of self-help fiction or biography do you read? That's I'm curious.
I will tell you, like, I love Dan Miller's books. He wrote 48 Days to the Work You Love, No More Dreaded Mondays, Wisdom Meets Passion. Highly recommend Dan Miller's books. In fact, Dan Miller has been a wonderful mentor for me. His books kind of led me down this whole path as well. Um, Tom Ziegler has a brand new book, Choose to Win. I love Tom Ziegler and the Ziegler books. There's so much to learn about life from them. It's not just about sales, but it's also about how to navigate life. So those books, pretty much any self-help nonfiction, I'm open to reading it.
Oh wow, you sound like a fanatic for self-help, huh? um, do you
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you write your goals down, or how do you set your goals, or how do you write it down, or vision boards, or what do you do?
That's a good question. I do the passion test. The passion test is basically prioritizing how you want to live your life. And you have the top 5. And every day you do something towards those top 5 to get you to live your passions. And I also have vision board, which is more of my goal board. And my goals are on that vision board. And then I have a journal, different journals where I keep, our thoughts and different goals and things like that. So when I get up in the day, I have a general idea of what I want to work on, but I'm also allowing time for creativity. I'm an artist. I love to paint. So I allow time in my day. So when that inspiration sparks up, I literally run to my basement and I paint.
Ooh, you're an artist.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It seemed like you have tapped into this creative center of yours. Were you always this creative?
Hmm. No, no. This is funny because I think I flunked art when I was growing up. I remember we had an art project in first grade, and the teacher explained the instructions over and over and over, and I still messed it up. So for me, thinking about art, not even on my radar. My daughter came home with paint one day and canvases, and we threw paint on it, and all of a sudden it was like, I kind of like this, but I didn't do anything with it. And then a friend of mine was into alcohol ink, and he posted some beautiful tile work. And so one day I said to him, Chris Holmes, how do you do this alcohol ink thing? And he gave me instructions of what to buy and what to do. And then a friend of mine and I, we were bored one night. We went out and bought it, and we came back, and 4 hours later, we were still painting, and I never stopped.
Holy crap! That shows that people who think that they're not good at art, they can try to paint or try to do whatever type of art. That wow, that's very interesting. Thank you so much for that. For as an author or anybody who wants to become an author, how did you begin your process of writing your own book and getting it published?
That's another great question. I actually have a course on there called Stop Talking, Start Writing. And in that course, I basically put down everything that I've been using in the process of writing 12 books. So I created this formula that I use to write books, and it's a great way to get the ideas out of your head, put them down, organize them, and start writing. So if people want that course, they can grab that course. But for people who even have an idea of a book, a lot of people never move beyond the idea. Maybe it's fear. Maybe they think, oh, I can't write. Maybe they think, oh, who's going to read it? I don't know. I always tell people test your idea. Go on medium.com and just write a couple of articles about what you think your book is going to be about and see if people will read it. That's one way you can test it. You don't have to dive in and write the whole book. You can test the market. But also know this, if you have an idea in your head and that idea keeps coming up over and over and what's the worst that can happen if you spend a couple of months writing your book out there? At least you have a book, right? You get to the end of your life and you look back, you're probably going to say, man, I'm so glad I wrote that book. And if you didn't write it and you got to the end of your life and you look back, you're probably going to say, why didn't I write that book? So you choose.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the people have a choice whether what to do, because their present moment pain is more painful than going to the grave with their music in them or their dream. That's so powerful when you say that. Now, as for you, what is your what superpower would you have if you have any? Would you like to have if you could have any?
You know what I think all of our superpowers are?
Now, what's our
Is that
superpower?
we're unique. We're unique.
Ooh.
We're unique. We never tapped into that uniqueness superpower because we get so wound up in all these other things that we can't see our own superpower as the uniqueness of who we are. I think about, friends who maybe have this character that they're playing, instead of being the character, they're playing one. And I'm thinking, wow, that's just not an authentic way to live life. Be you. That's your superpower. Is who you are, your uniqueness. Nobody wears your hair exactly the same way as you, have the same eyes, have the same thoughts. No one interviews people the way you do. You're Johnny. You're the only way you can do Johnny is you. That's your superpower.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I feel like we don't embrace it enough in our society. We don't embrace who we are. I feel like we have to hide and play this game, hide and seek with people, whether it's from a job or from friends, or we don't share that with the world, And maybe because we're sometimes people are scared that uh, acceptance, or if we share this part of ourselves, people feel will reject us, but share who we are anyway. Because I do that. I share who I am, whether regardless what people like it or hate it. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I get to, because I listened to someone say at the end of the day, either you go after your dream or go after something. You at the end of the day, you have to deal with your regrets. They don't, and you have to deal with the decision that you make, not them. And for you, would you ever time travel back to the future or or the past?
Wow. That's a tough question. I think that's one that I can't even answer. Um, I want to be able to do both.
Oh, that's a
You know
good
what I mean?
answer.
Honestly, I would want to do. I would be able to push a button and boom, and then go back and hug my mom again. You know what I mean? My dad again, things like that. So that's a tough question. I don't
Well,
even. I think both.
that's a good question. Look, the reason
That's
I
my
came
answer. I'm sticking with it.
that's yeah. The reason I asked that because I was like, instead of asking what everybody needs to, but I'm just curious of if I can be a little bit playful because I usually sometimes be playful with the interview sometimes, and I want to see what will happen, uh, and usually it's fun. Thank you so much for that, Karen. Where can we find
Mhm.
you online?
You can find me on the internet at agelesspassions.com or yourpassionschool.com. And I'm on social media all over the place. So, yeah. And reach out. You can email me at Karen at agelesspassions.com. I will answer every email.
For you as a life or coaching, how do you actually coach people? Because I don't know how to coach people. That's like, how do you direct people to their passion or their life purpose? How can you do that? That's I never thought about.
I do one on one coaching, I do workshops, I do a lot of speaking, and I will be launching it's called the Passion Quest, helping you create and live a life of fun and adventure. That's launching in April. So
That's good.
that's going to be like a group coaching package.
Hmm. I mean, like, how can we like how can we, if we want to coach somebody, how can we coach them? That's what I mean too.
There's so many coaches out there. Some of them I think are doing more harm than good because a lot of people are just hanging up the shingle of coach without really having training, without really having a process of helping people. Now, that doesn't mean you can't hang a shingle up if you've got that gift, but you've got to have some kind of process that shows people I can take you from where you are, I can help you get to where you want to be. And a lot of that is tapping into people's own power so that they can get from the A to B point or live the way they want to live. And you've got, as a coach, you've got to have some kind of process, a way of helping people to grow.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope after I'm done with this video, I'll send it to your email. And I hope that you have an amazing day today.
Awesome.
Thank you. Bye bye, Karen.
You too. Have a passionate day.
I will have a passionate day.